All right, friends, let's talk about dimensions. Keep in mind, I am not an artist. I have no degree in any of this. This is just based on my research, what I have found, and what I've found to be helpful when understanding what it means to be psychic, when it means what it understands to have knowledge from other dimensions, to be able to transcend, to be able to expand, to level up, all those things that we talk about, but we don't really quite get. So we're going to talk first about dimensions. So this is one dimension, right? It is a point in time. We have no idea how big this point is, where it relates to anything else. It's just a single point in time, and time is important, right? This is two dimensions, which means we can create a connection between these two, which means we can understand the relativity of one point to the other. This is two-dimensional, i.e. a drawing on a piece of paper, or like I'm drawing right now. Three dimensions is when we add a third point. So when we add this third point, we get our bodies, right? It is something that can be touched, seen from multiple angles, and has 3 points of dimension to measure. So X, Y, Z axis. If you don't understand 3 dimensions, the rest of this is going to be rough. I would just go ahead and stop now. All right, so all of these dimensions are moving through the 4th dimension. So the 4th dimension is time. Okay, this is the 4th dimension. This is the 1st dimension, 2nd, 3rd, right? So when we add a 4th point of reference, we get time. So all of these particles are theoretically in a place in time. So we'll say that they are right here, okay? So when we add this 4th dimension, we get this present moment, okay? Now, all time originated from the Big Bang, from the initiation and the origination of consciousness, and all things are moving through it in the 4th dimension. When we get to the 5th dimension, we create what is known as branches in time. So you can branch off this direction and imagine a different reality. So let's say you and your being experienced a certain upbringing, a certain childhood, perhaps a parent died. In the 5th dimension, you can create a different reality, which means you can go off and live a life as if the parent had not died. However, it is not possible for you to get back down to this reality. So when we get to the 6th dimension, you can actually create what's known as congruent timelines, which means you could know what it means to exist in this timeline at the same time as existing in this timeline, right? So I could be living in a reality where I had a different upbringing, had different childhood, had different whatever it is at the same time as being able to understand a different reality. So I could have 2 different spouses. I could have 2 different lives. I could have 2 different like financial bank account. Like I could have 2 different things, right? In the 7th dimension, we go all the way back to the origination of time, i.e. the Big Bang. We're going to do that this way. And we can create a different instance in the creation of consciousness altogether, which would obviously transcend time and space, et cetera, et cetera. So these dimensions have to do with space. The blue dimensions have to do with time. And the red dimension has to do with different. And I don't even know what to call the purple dimension. So the purple dimension it's the 7th dimension. Not a lot of people have explored it, right? The 8th dimension, which is the last one that we understand or we have attempted to understand, is something that goes beyond the Big Bang. What if the Big Bang had not happened and we had a completely different iteration of what it would be? It's basically, it's a black hole. It's unknowable. It's all Big Bangs. It's no Big Bangs. It's everything that is consciousness. It's just kind of like all white, all black, kind of gone, right? So here's where it gets fun. Our bodies exist within the 3rd dimension, right? They are 3-dimensional. We can touch them. We can feel them. They move along the 4th dimension, but they only go one direction, right? They are tied to this. So they are aging. We're currently trying to reverse that, but I'll get to that in a minute. Our minds exist in the fourth dimension. For instance, you can go back in time. You can remember what you ate for breakfast yesterday, what you did in your childhood, all of your existence, your memories are stored. So it's a little harder for us to move forward in time, but we actually can, which is the act of more manifestation qualities, right? This is kind of getting a little bit confusing up here. So let's just imagine that that's both. Our spirits, right, our highest consciousness right now exists in the fifth dimension, which means spiritually we can create the reality as if we had had a different experience in this timeline. Now, when we create that different reality, we begin to live that different reality because our spirits bring along our minds, which bring along our bodies, right? So right now, everything is in a state of evolution. What that means is this is going to the fourth, this is going to the fifth, and this is going to the sixth. So spiritual gurus all over the world are making steps and making effort to create new existences. So you're trying to understand what it's like to exist as a being who knows what it is like to be wealthy, as a being who knows what it is like to be abused, as a being who knows what it is like to be wealthy and abused. You get the idea here, right? We're trying to understand, which is a true experience of empathy, and it transcends time, space, and reality as we know it, which is really about where our minds are limited. So we have a hard time taking our minds and really picturing and imagining ourselves different. Perhaps like ourselves with a different cellular construction. We might have been taller, we could have been shorter, we could have had different levels of melanin in our skin, right? Also, we're trying to bring our bodies up to the fourth dimension, which means we could transcend time. So this is the act of becoming younger, cellular regeneration, which they are putting a lot of time and money into in the medical community. So what does all of this mean in the world of transformation? Well, certain people have evolved to higher levels of consciousness, more abilities to dimensional travel. So a lot of people in more Western worlds really just exist in the third dimension. The fourth dimension is where we introduce the idea that things can be changed, wrongs can be righted. This is known in like the Christian community as like Jesus forgiving sins, right? Washing the slate clean as if it had not happened, even though we know it did, right? So forgiveness, overcoming, and healing, also neuroplasticity and some of those elements are how we are recreating that fourth dimensional reality of us having to move through time. So then the more advanced versions of this exist in a lot of Eastern religions where people are not tied to reality at all. They are not tied to money. They are not tied to this time. They are not tied to their experience. Just because they couldn't walk yesterday doesn't mean that they can't walk tomorrow. And this doesn't mean that religions like Christianity that have been westernized don't also experience this. A lot of times they're known as miracles, right? It is creating a new reality, regardless of the one that has been established on this timeline. So if you feel that you have knowledge that is beyond what the people around you have, there's a high chance you are gaining that knowledge from another dimension. So you may be gaining knowledge from the sixth dimension, which is a different experience, different existence, different level of possibility than what everyone else is experiencing. What if you lived like you hadn't had that childhood? What if you lived like money was not exactly what's in your bank account right now? What if, what if, what if? And it is the work of coaches, therapists, healers, shamans, guides to help people evolve because the world is in a constant state of evolution. Consciousness is constantly evolving. So people that are tied in the third and the fourth dimension saying things like, that's just the way it is. You can't change it. This is what it is. You're stuck with the family you got. Those types of phrases are very third and fourth dimension, right? So encouraging people to think about it a little bit differently, to create a different reality. And a lot of people will do that by simply creating a different reality now, right? Creating a different way of living now. What if you lived like you were wealthy? What if you lived like you could? What if you lived like it didn't matter? And you can create that new reality, which actually is a branch from your original intended continuance in the timeline. When it gets real fun is when you have knowledge from the sixth and seventh dimensions on what if reality was completely irrelevant. What if time was completely irrelevant and we could exist right now, not in the future, but right now in a different level of time, space, existence, and knowledge? So, welcome to the dimensions. Happy travels.